Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. I'm Ted, hanging out with my esteemed colleagues.
I'm Ryan.
Dave.
Nate.
And today we're going to talk about the teaser download that Watts put out, Unearthed Arcana. What do you guys think?
First of all, it's Unearthed Arcana. Eberron.
Oh my God.
So
Yeah, the
Get it right,
it's a very
biatch!
specific kind of arcana that was being unearthed there.
Yeah, that's right.
it's actually pretty good because, this is probably my favorite setting that Watts has put out. So I'm glad to have it. I disagree with some things on here. I like some other things on here. And they actually, although it's not really big, they actually crammed a lot of stuff in here.
Well,
As per usual, as per like the
Fifth
mechanic
edition.
of 5th edition,
all
all
their teaser stuff that they've put out, they've chopped out any of the source material.
The fluff,
They're just
yeah.
the fluff. They're just giving you hardcore mechanics to say, you know what, you're already considering using this in some of your games. Let's go ahead and just say, here's our version.
Now, I'm incredibly happy they did this. I just feel it's really weird that essentially they're crowdsourcing the playtesting of it, but they're not telling us that's what they're doing.
So we're just going to complain about it.
Yeah, so we're just going to complain.
Yeah.
So do we want to talk about the things we like first, or the stuff that we disagree with first?
Or we just go in order.
Yeah, just go in order, and
All
then
right.
we get the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Change
of
it up.
all.
All right.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So first of all, they introduced 3 races, which
The
are
Changeling, the
Changeling,
Shifter, and the Warforged.
which are basically crucial to running a Eberron campaign.
Absolutely.
They make honorable mention of the Calistar, but nobody cares about psionics, so they're not in here.
Yeah, nobody.
Nobody.
Not a single person.
Not even at all.
Here, can I have that back? I might need it later. No, they excluded the Calistar
Because obviously they have not seen Nate's the Nerdarchy Psionics articles, so they were like, they did not have a solid system to go off of.
Right,
Yeah.
so maybe Nate's gonna have to redo the Calistar once he
Right.
learns what they were like in.
I actually don't even know what that race is. I never played Eberron. I mean, I like what I see.
So so in those 3 races, one of the things that bugs me is they kind of went away from their own convention of the +2/+1.
Right.
It really it's almost like a logic loop, for a computer, and it's got me all flustered. Now, with the Warforged and the Changeling, I'm kind of like, well, maybe, and
Because
you know
they
what?
get some-
Hey guys, we'll put the link to this thing in the description below, so you can check it out with us as we go. If you're not familiar with it so far, as
If
of
you haven't
now.
already read it, yeah.
We're just going I think for the sake of the video, we're going to assume everyone's read it,
Right, yeah. There you go.
more or less.
Okay.
So, for the Changeling and the Warforged, they get really cool abilities that, kind of maybe offsets the differential.
Right.
I feel like the Shifters just got completely
The
boned.
shifters got shafted?
They did.
All right, well, we said we're going to go in order, so let's not dance around the thing.
Oh,
Let's
let's
just
look
go
at
into the
Changeling.
Changeling.
Changeling. Okay.
All right.
So the Changelings, the Dark Vision, do they get Dark Vision? No, they don't get Dark Vision. They're like humans. But they get bonuses to Dex and Charisma. They're medium, and basically they got 1 ability, plus they get a bonus language. Their 1 ability is
They
Duplicity.
get 2 bonus languages, actually, and they get a skill.
Do they get 2 bonuses?
They get any 2 languages. Because they're changing, they're going into different cultures and
Yeah.
stuff, passing. So they get 2 bonus languages, actually.
Yeah, they don't get a skill, though.
They get deception.
Oh, they do get Deception.
What good is
Duplicity.
a damn? What good is it being able to change anything if you can't pull it off?
Yeah, yeah.
Are you
So,
really
yeah,
an
they-
orc?
Yes, totally an orc.
Absolutely.
See, that's
I
all
checked
you
this
need.
morning.
I look like one, don't I?
Yeah.
This morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, they get Deception as a skill, and they get 2 languages. Oh yeah, it is. I thought it was common and another language, but it's 2.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But the real factor for them is not duplicity, because that's the
Shape changer.
The shape changer.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't be a changeling without shape changing.
No.
And now I got it. Now I understand.
So now there's a little bit of things open for debate here because of the word polymorph is used in there, but I believe the way it's supposed to be listed is you just get to look like something else. You're not actually adapting stats or powers of other things.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is the fact that shape changers are they're descended from doppelgangers, so they really do take on the form.
Right.
They physically alter, but they don't necessarily get if they have gills, they're not functional gills.
Right.
It just looks
aesthetically.
like it.
They're
Yeah.
aesthetically that
Yeah.
thing.
But your own physical stats are not going to
change. Right,
So-
but they also had to differentiate between them physically changing and then them having an illusion of looking different,
Right.
because they're completely different. Because if you can see through illusions, you cannot see through a changeling's disguise,
Right.
because they physically have changed. Now, if you have a way to figure out their physiology, then you might be able to. There might be some clues. Like you might realize that their gills are not functional, or that their claws really aren't sharp enough or hard enough to do damage.
Right.
They're going to break like fingernails or whatever the case may be. But for all intents and purposes, they are masters of disguise, and there's enough here to convey that.
Yeah, the Changeling is the one that I think all of us are pretty uniformly perfectly cool with.
Yeah,
I would love to play a Changeling.
The
way they
Changeling's good. They don't get the extra +1, but depending on how that ability is used and seeing it work in game, and my own preference as far as like playtesting something is to go weaker to stronger anyway. So from that convention, it perfectly makes sense.
And also too, they follow the sort of the alternative build of human, the 2+1s to different stats.
Right.
They're like humans, but then you layer in this whole thing that I think is well equivalent to like the feat that a baseline human gets, like the whole getting a skill, another 2 languages, and then they can pass for anything. Like that's that's
it's pretty
fantastically
good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
especially if they have like bard
or rogue, yeah, hell yeah.
or even spellcasters. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do to augment. No, look, I look like a fish guy, and I really do breathe underwater.
Yeah, and then or illusions where you get the sounds of like a roar if you're going to do something lionine or whatever. Yeah.
So
yeah.
there's lots of options. The next is the shifter, and their biggest thing is the fact that they get the shift. It's almost like a mini barbarian rage.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
It's not quite as good, but it lets you do different things. They get their baseline is they get a +1 to the dexterity, and then they have dark vision, and then basically it's their shifting, and then their languages are common and Sylvan.
Well, one thing to say about the shifting though is that aside from what they get based on their individual like influencing breed of shifter, is they also get a bump to temporary hit points for con
When
right?
they shift.
Right.
Yeah.
So con plus level, the con modifier plus level. Every time they shift, which they can do in between short rests, basically every short rest they get this back. They're getting temp hit points, and then the individual
the
type
ability.
of shifter,
And also the type of ability shifter they are determines what
Their
kind
stats.
of their other +1 stat.
right.
So this is now I agree with the way they did it, but I would have given them a +2 to that other stat as opposed to the +1,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't have went with an increase to dexterity. I would have put it in wisdom.
Right.
I feel that being animalistic and animal-like, they're going to be more aware of their
Keener senses.
Yeah, more aware of their surroundings through those keener senses. So I actually did do a shifter build
Right.
in my home game, and my daughter's playing a Longtooth,
Right.
and which I gave them. I gave her the bonus to Dex and Wisdom.
Okay.
So I don't know. There's a bunch of different types. They have like Beasthide, Cliffwalker, Longstrider, Longtooth, Razor Claw, and Wild Hunt, which is most of them from Eberron. There's a couple that aren't in here.
Well, see, I was just about to ask. I was like, are there more? Because I don't remember Cliff Walk. I don't remember.
There was
Wild Hunt.
There is actually several books that
Okay.
are spread out, and all of these are in here plus a few.
Okay.
So depending what it is, it's either you're going to get some kind of attack or a movement advantage. Like the Longstrider, if you're a rogue, what they get is actually useless. Because as a bonus action, they can dash.
Right.
So that I don't like that kind of stuff where you're stepping on the toes of other classes.
Right.
So I would try and in my design, I think I would try and find ways to make it better. What would have been better for that is an increased movement.
Right.
While they're shifted, because then it's useful no matter what's
you do.
going on.
Yeah.
But then again, my understanding is the Watts staff has been whittled down pretty small, so
right, yeah.
so it's probably cool that we're still even getting this stuff to look at and start incorporating into our games, and we get to play test it,
and tell them if it's broken or not, not working.
This is too
right.
good, or this is suck, or
This is
whatever.
underpowered.
Yeah, I mean, other than GMs though, I think you're rarely going to get the people that are going to complain about something being too good. Like, like the game master is like, no, this is effing breaking my game, and the player's like, this is awesome, I'm kicking ass. So there's,
Well, a good indication is if your player no longer wants to play
anything else but that. Yeah.
Yeah. And next thing you know, you have a party of them.
Yeah. So I mean, the main thing we were saying is the different subspecies of the shifter, like so. +1 the wisdom for the baseline, and then +2 on whatever the power stat is for the build. Like the what was it? The beast hide. They get a bonus to con. Make that a +2 to con as opposed to a +1.
Right.
Like is our thought on it.
Which, that's exactly our thoughts.
Yeah.
Right,
Fix it, Watts.
Yeah.
So now we move on to the Warforged.
Yeah, this is a fan favorite for sure. Again, they do the same thing with the +1 the strength and con. Which, what's weird about that is like, because the Warforged are kind of so strong, so now they're just as strong as other things.
Right.
Not quite as strong as a half-orc, not quite as strong as a Dragonborn. Yeah. But, they're stronger than elves at least.
Well, I would say not all builds of Warforged are built for strength. Like, if I were to monkey with this, I might give them the +2 to con, because they're super resistant to things, because they don't need to breathe and all this. Like, they don't have as many biological functions as people.
I would have done Warforged with, like, subrace options.
Because, like, a scout build...
Right.
And, the heavy build, there's...
But then you just put your low stat in strength... And then, like, hey, it's one better, and you're able to have, like, a 15 dex. Like, as a Warforged, that's still significant.
I still would have done it as a subrace thing.
And they may yet do that, so who knows?
I don't think in the original thing, like, they had feats you could take that would modify your.
Yeah, well, that's why I would think the subraces would kind of replace the feat option.
Because feats are not as affluent as they were.
But because they've made them so much better, and there were some really good Warforged things that, like, like there was the one where you were essentially a walking suit of plate mail.
Right.
Well,
and, like,
but here's the problem: you got to wait till 4th level to get it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like, and I'm not and I'm not even going from the standpoint as a player having to play through 4 levels. We're going from the standpoint of you're a Warforged, somebody
you're built
you
this way, and
then all of a sudden you have to get to 4th level, and then you get completely changed. With even like it's almost like with the archetypes for your classes, you're still an apprentice up to level 3. You're still working on it, so that's fine. It makes sense in the game. But if
you're made of a thing, it's kind of silly.
To go, now at 4th level, you've finally been finished.
Yeah, because I mean, like some of those feats too. It was even like must take at 1st level, like some of them blatantly said with the Warforged. Yeah. So.
And if you go by the lore of the Warforged, the Canith forges have been shut down, quote unquote, and there are no more Warforged being made. So it's not even like you go, I got off the assembly line before they quite got finished. Now I'm going to go back and get this finished up. No, they're shut down. They're not doing that anymore.
Right.
Quote unquote.
Yeah. I mean, you could always get an Artificer to like upgrade you, maybe, but that's whatever.
Upgrade.
Here and there. Yeah.
So.
Well, maybe you also augment yourself. I mean, if you could take off different plates that you feel like, I don't need these necessary. They're not necessary. You discover that over time, and then eventually you're lighter, so maybe you move faster, or you decide to start bolting extra stuff onto you because you can. So
right, because it's like, this is
maybe you get like the heavy armor feat or whatever as part of. Like,
the interesting thing, like Warforged can wear armor. They get a natural armor bonus now, which stacks with other things.
Which is
nothing else
the
gets,
first
right?
that we're seeing
natural armor.
Yeah, it is the first.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Aside, almost in the game, there's a couple spells that will increase your armor class, but so far that has been bracers of armor do as well,
right?
Magic item, but like few and far between.
Yeah.
So composite plating is basically the +1 bonus to armor class. So, which instantly, when you know what I thought, I'm like, oh yeah, draconic sorcerer, or you could absolutely do the barbarian or the monk.
Yeah.
And that would stack.
That's nice.
The way it's written. So, so that's kind of cool. Barbarian, monk, sorcerer, dragon sorcerer, warforged is everywhere.
All over the place.
So living construct. here's the thing. Like, this is why I feel like they don't get as many. They don't get that other +1 is because they feel this is so good, and I'm kind of like, I mean, it makes sense. So what they get is they're immune to disease. They don't need to eat or breathe. They can ingest food or drink, so you can use potions and consumables. And, they have to be inactive for 4 hours a day to get their rest. And they're fully aware of what's going on.
That's actually changed, because didn't they used to have, like, they needed to be inactive for 8 hours?
No, they didn't sleep.
They didn't have to be inactive at all.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, they used to.
Yeah, it has changed, Ted.
Just change the other direction.
No, so I mean, the way I could see it too is like another benefit I could see giving them is since they can technically wear armor, I would just say like we were talking about, they modify themselves so they are armor. Like basically, they get to put on armor that they never have to take off, and that's a huge advantage when you're like at rest. Because like, how many times like if you want to screw with the party, you have like the party attack when the fighters are like out of their full plate.
Well, and that's just it for them. They never take the armor off.
Yeah.
I would even go as far to say if the player wanted to say that their armor
is
part of
them. Yeah,
them,
that's
like,
totally
fine.
yeah. That's because that makes sense. Like it's modifying yourself. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Which we know you're all about.
Oh,
So immunity to disease. Okay, it's okay, but how often is that really going to come up?
Well,
major plot devices where you use disease. Oh, the Warforged is immune. Okay, so let's say you wanted to have something affect the party, and they need to get cured. Well, the Warforged will be immune to it. So
he just leaves the party like, oh, this seems like a breather problem. Sorry, guys.
yeah, this is one of you mouth breathers' problems, not mine. I see an issue with certain plot devices getting messed up by something as unique as the Warforged's abilities, but
I don't think
it's that powerful, even though it messes up.
But it doesn't really, because the rest of the party still has to worry about it, and if he cares about the party, it becomes his problem by proxy.
Or unless you make him like Bender from Futurama.
Hey guys,
Warforged.
Bite my shiny metal ass. That's what I'm saying to all of you.
And you could always make him a carrier for the disease, or create new diseases for Warforged.
Dude, no, just put a rust monster in your scenario. Like, you got the disease and a rust monster. The villains plan for you.
You got a disease mounted on rust monsters.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I've done that. I've used rust monsters as weapons against Warforged.
Why not? Yeah.
Because if you got
Dave hates
Warforged,
his players.
more or less.
Dude, that would be the best sadistic torture for a Warforged. Like, just like dangling a rust monster.
Let a rust monster gnaw on him a little.
Well, no, I mean just like threatening. It's like the rat box, you know?
Now, the living constructs, how do they get healed and fixed?
Just like everyone else, according to this. I mean, before
They didn't get into it. Yeah, they didn't get into
Okay,
it.
Yeah.
so if they got knocked down to 0, which would normally wound somebody or do something they're going to be dying if no one helps them, or if they don't stabilize.
I think with the Warforged, those would be inactive. But technically, it doesn't say. So because it's not stated here, you would treat them as you would any other class.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, they used to get half effectiveness from healing magic because it's like they were living, but it's not in the same way.
But they also didn't bleed out. If they dropped to 0, they
were just inert. Yeah, you'd have to keep beating them apart until really kill them for good.
Okay.
No disassemble Johnny 5.
Yeah, pretty much. Except for they're at below 0, so he couldn't say that.
Yeah.
He could just think it. Stop disassembling Johnny 5. So, and then the other two things is, the fact that they don't need to breathe and they don't need to eat. I really feel like, they're cool fluff kind of advantages, but I just don't feel like they come up that often. No. Like, there's definitely things where you're going to go, okay, there's a river, I'm just going to walk along the bottom and go to the other side. There's going to be instances like that where the not breathing thing is going to come into play.
Yeah.
It's going to be more of a utilitarian thing to the whole party as opposed to, like, a major advantage.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like if they get knocked off. Like, okay, so the normal fighter gets knocked overboard on a ship is kind of screwed if he's in heavy armor.
Right.
The Warforged is severely inconvenienced.
Yeah. Well, unless it's like you're in a river or an ocean that there's bigger and badder things down at the bottom. He's gonna be like, oh my god,
or aquatic rust monsters.
Gotta watch out for them aquatic rust monsters. But no, my point is, like, so now the ship's up there somewheres and you're down there. How do you get to it? Do the people know to look for you? How do you find? So, like I said, it's an inconvenience.
Right.
But it's not a life ender like the fighter in heavy armor.
I just thought of a great usage for Warforged. an anchor. Like, you get, like, the biggest, heaviest, like, platiest thing, and it's just like, alright, guys, I'm just gonna hang out here and weigh the ship down for a little bit.
I can't remember if it was an Eberron story or if I used it in my game.
They all blur together.
It blurs together after a while. But where there was, like, a Warforged salvager.
Yeah, going down to the bottom of... That totally, which totally
I don't
makes
think
sense.
that was in any game that I played.
Okay, so I probably totally just read that.
Just read it.
In a story. That's
Steal
the
from
problem.
everywhere.
That's the problem when, you've been gaming for 30 years and you've read hundreds of books, literally. It all just jives together at some point. So like, you brought up the point of, well, poison gas. You don't need to breathe. But it doesn't say you're immune to poison.
But you're not breathing, so it's like, is it damaging you because you're breathing it in, or is it damaging because it's attacking you from the
Chlorine
outside?
gas will hurt you regardless of whether or not you breathe it in.
Just
So
it's what popped into my head when I heard it.
So like, the regardless of the delivery system,
yeah,
it's going to have a damage type.
Mm-hmm.
They're not immune to any of the damage types.
Right.
So it's definitely DM Fiat going. You might go, well, you know what, you got screwed on that +1, so I guess you don't. The cloud kill isn't really affecting you because you don't have. You can choose not to breathe it in.
Right.
Or maybe it's like one of those things, you get surprised, so you take the damage the first round, but after that you go, oh, I better make sure this doesn't get on the inside of me.
Well, I mean, but they don't breathe, so no point do they respirate. Like, the whole, like, it's not choosing to not breathe. They don't breathe because they don't have nostrils or whatever. Like, there's no taking in of anything. So as long as they don't accidentally have their mouth open or
but
whatever.
they do have, they're living constructs, so they do have, like, these pseudo, for lack of a better term, biological functions.
Right.
That don't require them
Do
to
they
breathe.
poop? Do Warforged poop?
They might.
It's like pellets.
Sprockets.
everybody does.
Yeah, it's pellets, it's filings.
So my point is, like,
Filings.
like they have fluids that circulate through them and stuff like that. So there's stuff going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not, but they don't need to eat or breathe. So, but my point is, like, how is the poison affecting them? Is it because it's just poisoning in contact is enough? Is it because it has to be breathed in? So there's definitely a gray area for there.
So I would say that for, like, in the actual section under poisons, it talks about inhaled.
Yes.
So I would say for that particular situation, Warforged would be immune
To the inhaled variety.
to the inhaled variety because they don't breathe.
Contact,
if it
absolutely.
requires
Right.
if it requires you to inhale, yeah, I would say so. So they also can't. So no suffocation, no drowning, and nothing that requires inhalation to work. Cloud kill, I don't know if you have to breathe it in or if it just affects you because you're in it.
Right. And there's other things like poison spray too. So
Or elven pipeweed, even. How is that going to affect a Warforged?
well, I guess they can do it because they can prove they can choose to ingest.
Right. But not inhale. Right.
So they have some kind of ability to consume things.
Right, yeah. It
So-
says that they can consume food and drink, but they don't need to. Which means there's almost like a system in place, just like there would be for a biological creature.
Right.
It's just that they don't need to use it.
So you can have Stoner Warforged in your campaign.
Apparently, yes.
Yeah,
apparently
they'll
can.
hang out with the Gobulos.
They will hang out with the Goblins.
Yeah. What if someone has bellows full of poison air and it just inject it into them? How does that work?
Magnets.
Magnets make that happen.
Just magnets.
So the Warforged is a big gray area. I don't know. We'll have to play them in the game.
Big metallic-y gray area.
Yeah. So we'll play them in our game and see how it affects things.
Yeah.
I do like how that gives information on living constructs because there's a few psionic things that I am working on that require I wanted to know Watts' idea of what was too powerful for a construct that wanted to.
Well,
was
there you
gonna
go.
get
Now
loose.
you know.
So Shard Mine is on the way.
Yeah. But that being said, they're like totally use this stuff, but we're probably going to change it anyway. So
But it's nice to have a base instead of make something up and people are like, oh, that's too powerful because you don't breathe. I'm like, you kidding me, right? So now that that's out, I'll be like, look, Warforged, get off my back.
Case in point.
So next up we got Artificer.
we do. Which Artificer they just folded into a wizard tradition.
That's pretty interesting.
I mean, it's not bad. There's a certain sense in it for sure.
It used to be like its own thing that was, huge and exhausting.
But they were really cool because Like they were like bards that didn't suck in a way that made stuff. Like they were ultimate. They had all this utility. They could act kind of like a wizard or a spellcaster, or they could definitely be like your trap finder rogue.
They had a super diverse spell list, yeah.
Or they could be their own thing. It was just they had to put their spells into an object. Yeah. So they kind of still had that ability, sorta, where they're taking the wizard's abilities to use arcane recovery and pretty much arcane recovery, and basically take your spells and put them into stuff using that ability, which is I don't know, I guess it gives you more options because it's like you get to front load your arcane recovery if you want to,
right?
So starting second level, I guess it wouldn't matter. You could basically just have the extra first level spell and start with it in potion form. And the other thing is...
it makes it consumable that somebody else in the party, you can go, here you go.
Yeah, it does a couple things.
You can make basically potions of spell store rather than having some
not really.
Not really?
Because they're very specific.
Yeah.
They're potions out of the DMG. But that being said, you're also getting access to abilities that I don't know that are covered in the spells. I mean, some of them clearly are. But others aren't, and you're also as a wizard you can actually heal. So that's definitely far different than what we have access to now. Right. So like you said, someone else can use it other than you. So that that's some more utility. You get scrolls, which is basically taking arcane recovery and front loading it into a scroll. So that I don't know, instead of getting the slots back, you make... I don't know, it's kind of weird. Again, someone else can use the scroll. So for a balance issue, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that one yet.
Now, is there a duration on these scrolls and potions that they get to make?
There is.
I think they can only have 3 of the items active at one time.
Okay, because that
stuff goes up.
It depends on your level a lot.
Because that's like, okay, well,
because I know eventually you can make 2 sets of armor, right?
A week. The potions last a week.
Okay, because with because like the way we're currently running, it's like, there might be times where it's like, you have 2 or 3 weeks of downtime, and it's like, well, I'll just make a bazillion items, and now I don't have to worry about it.
Not with the shelf
life. You do that, and then you pick which ones are still around, and you start. Essentially, when they get to higher levels, they actually get to have multiple things going at once. The way the potions work is you put the spell slot into the potion, and it can last up to a week. But if you get that slot back, then the potion is inert. It doesn't do anything anymore. The scrolls are kind of the same way. You can store your arcane recovery in scroll form, but if you use it, it will then go away as well. And they last... So they last indefinitely, but you can't use that class feature until you use the scroll or you make the scroll go away.
Okay.
I would almost rather see than the scroll, because it does seem silly to I'm front loading my spells that I can really just get anyway from arcane recovery and use in any way, shape, or form that I want. To give almost one shot wondrous items instead. Here's a ring that'll do this, or here's this little the Tinker Gnome could hey, I've tinkered this, because they make the little Tinker toys. Right. They're this is going to do this thing, like a ghost sound or whatever for you. So you can just give that off to other players, and they can activate it, or however you want to do it.
Well, you can with a scroll. I think other people can read scrolls. Yeah. Certain ones.
I think it's really cool, the different abilities that they get. What I don't like is this feeling of Ranger Beast archetype going on, where it's the shared action feel. It's I'm going to use my abilities to make myself weaker, and I have the choice of divvying out some of my power to other people.
But if you need a bunch of stuff to say go off in the first round, more power, area of effect stuff, you can get 2 area effects happening. Say you're the only caster in the group, now you can have the fighter or the rogue trigger this other thing. Maybe they have a thing you give them a Thunderstone that you infuse, because this is again saying that instead of a scroll they could do a wondrous item. You infuse Thunderwave into a rock, and then they throw it, and then they Thunderwave, you do your own Thunderwave. You just doubled everything up with as far as area of effect damage, right. And you have 2 shots to make them all go prone as well.
Right.
So
is that something they can do?
no, this is something I
Okay.
just made up on the fly.
Now, come 14th level, they actually just make magic items.
Yeah, but it takes
Okay.
a week.
It takes a week, and they can only do it every other month.
Yeah.
But
Well,
they can
I mean-
start churning out magic items at that point.
That is a really nice feature.
But I mean, it's Eberron too, because it's not going to be Eberron if magic isn't part of your everyday life. Like you're
Right.
getting far outside of the
Yeah, high
purview of the
level
campaign.
artificers need to be able
At
to
10th
crank
level
up the stuff.
too. At 10th level, you're able to. You can have 2 items at once, and you can also do an extra. By items, I mean armor, weapons, and ammunition. You can have up to 2 of them going at the same time, and you also get to create an additional potion and an additional scroll.
Nice.
So you get a lot of variety there. So yeah, it does have.
It needs some work still.
Yeah.
But again, like I said, they're putting stuff out for people to tinker with. I feel like they're outsourcing the playtest to us without actually saying that, which is weird. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, come on, dude. If you followed any of the history of 5e, like that was like the culmination of all the playtesting that was going on. Like that's part of the course. So I mean, it's not that far outside of it. But
they
they
told you
should've-
they were doing
They,
it.
well, I mean, they're saying this isn't final, and they probably know that gamers are gamers, and they're not going to not
Yeah.
give feedback,
Yeah.
and they're going to probably do
Whether you
it
want it or not.
belligerently and whatever. And actually, it'd be kind of cool if we did a one shot where we just like all played a one shot Eberron game using a lot of this stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know, somebody
See
play
how
the
it goes.
Artificer, somebody play Changeling. You can make a whole party of these individual components.
Right.
You know.
We could definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool, and it'd be a good way to test out the system. And
Hey, you guys out there, you want to see us play an Eberron one shot with using the Unearthed Arcana Eberron rules?
Or
Let
do
us know.
we use it verbatim, or do we use it with our suggested changes?
I always feel like you got to like use it as is to really get a feel for
Maybe
what it is.
2 one-shots, one with our changes and one with.
Because that's the thing. I totally want to play the Tinker Gnome. That's like making the one instead of the scroll, the one-shot items. Like it's reflavoring it, but
Yeah.
like
why does it have to be a
scroll.
Exactly a scroll.
Because I mean, you know,
why
they
can't
can
it be like, here's a big shiny red button?
Yeah.
Press it when you're in trouble.
yeah.
Press it.
because
Press it.
because you're a gnome of the House of Civis, and they're scribes. Yeah, the mark of scribing. That's why.
So yeah, one shot for Eberron sounds like a great plan.
So action points. Action points. They've brought them back, and they're
And-
basically hero points in the DMG.
Yeah,
optional rule.
out of the DMG and this thing, you know,
Verbatim.
it is literally verbatim. Other than the fact that DMG called it a hero point,
They call it
and
an
this calls it
action
an action point. You
Which-
know,
which is a holdover from Eberron in 3rd edition,
Right.
which other systems have used. So
right.
Yeah. So yeah, we were kind of teasing out the dragon marks, so the dragon mark houses.
yeah, Dragon Marks is one of the coolest things in Eberron. I love them. Although I'm a little disappointed, there is no aberrant marks on here.
I
Yeah.
did not pay attention to that.
I've only had one character that had an aberrant mark, who was a paladin, well. He was a Charles Bronson, Judge Dredd-esque sort of paladin.
Maybe they're saving that for the game masters
Guy.
section.
Well,
of
where the
Eberron.
yeah, right.
Maybe. I don't think that's going to happen.
The,
but
the thing that I really liked about the dragon marks in this was they were not like I'm going to devote my entire character to this thing.
Yeah.
Because with the 3rd edition build, it's like, okay, you take the lesser dragon mark, the medium dragon mark, the greater dragon mark,
least,
the
lesser,
legendary.
and greater. Yeah.
Yeah, but we also get a lot less feats in this edition.
Yeah, and you
Like,
got really cool things when you took that tree.
Do you
That's
take more than
true.
one dragon mark?
I
no,
don't think so.
Okay.
No.
because you're only like
was
descendant
I was
of
just
one.
wondering.
It would have to be
But,
like a story.
You know,
thing,
now it's
maybe.
like, all right, you take your dragon mark, and it's now just dependent upon what level your character is as to what abilities you actually get. So I actually really like it.
Although I could see a really cool like story thing, because Eberron had some stuff going on with prophecies and this and that.
Yeah.
Like somebody born of two, because like a lot of the dragon marks were divided amongst different races, but like humans, I think they had multiple different types. It could be like prophesized that somebody would
Well,
bring two houses together. Or something
so
like that.
basically, the elves break off into two different houses, but it's actually the same mark.
Yeah.
The half elves break off into two different marks, and they're completely separate marks. Dwarf, they get one. Halfling, they have two. Gnome has one, and the human has 1, 2, 3, 4 different marks that they could end up with.
Yeah.
Half
And
of-
actually, wasn't part of the aberrant thing like that could happen if two dragon marked houses came
Yeah,
together
yeah.
too? Was it? That was
yeah,
part of
like
the
they were definitely, that you didn't mix because that was the fear that you'd produce an aberrant mark.
Okay.
And the problem with the aberrant marks was, a lot of them go crazy.
Okay.
It was like a little bit of a far realm sort of thing happening.
Yeah, and
A little touch of chaos. I mean, that would be really appropriate for our Griffin Gaff campaign.
but and not only that, like where the marks, the dragon marks are like these beautiful magical tattoos that show up, and depending on how powerful your mark is, determines
How cool
how big it is. Like there was in the one story arc, there's this like legendary type of dragon mark that
The Siberius mark. I believe
yeah,
they're
it's
called, yeah.
very extremely rare that will it ends up engulfing like your whole body.
Well, it's like a full back tattoo or something like that. Like it's super crazy. Yeah.
But the aberrant marks, they may ooze, they might be riddled with sores, they may be scabbish.
Or move. Like
Yeah, they could
moving
move.
tattoo.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff going on that. But yeah, the really cool thing about these, and this is a cool thing just to incorporate it into any game, with a little bit of refluffing, reskinning,
Of course.
is when you first take it, you get abilities, and then at 5th level, 9th level, it just keeps growing. I mean, not that you couldn't take it at 12th level and be like, boom, giant dragon mark has shown up the next day. Yeah.
Because sometimes they wouldn't manifest on some individuals until later in life. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
under some kind of stress or something.
Yeah. It's like getting mutant power.
Yeah, pretty much. So the list tells you the houses that they are incorporated from. It tells you the ability stat that you're going to use to power your mark, essentially.
Right.
And then what you get. So all of them give you a first level spell and a cantrip. I'm not sure about how often.
I thought you just pick between one of the two different options, or do you get both the cantrip and?
When you first take this feat, you gain the least dragon mark. You learn the spells listed under the least column.
Well, a learned cantrip is a learned cantrip. You can just blast it away, right?
Yeah. Well, maybe. You gain the ability to innately cast spells and cantrips as summarized in the dragon mark benefits table using the spellcasting ability listed under the ability column. You can cast each spell at its lowest level. Once you cast a given spell this way, you must finish a long rest before you can cast it innately again.
All right.
You must expend any material components. Your dragon mark confers the following benefits. So, going by that, it may be that you can only do your cantrip once a day.
Sounds like it.
Because a cantrip is still a spell.
Yeah.
But then again, you may want your dragon marks to be more magical and go, no, it's a cantrip, you can use it at will. I feel like there's wiggle room for that depending on what you're doing.
I agree.
Until the raw comes out.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll change. It'll change how powerful the dragon mark is if you gain a cantrip, adding it to it. But
Right.
I mean, there's magic initiate. You can get 2 cantrips.
Yes.
And
But
it
and
doesn't
first
get
level
better.
spell. This is true.
Spell sniper again gives you an extra cantrip and confers some benefits, but
It doesn't get better.
It doesn't get better.
Yeah, I
And
think there's 3rd level spells on that list of things you get, right?
yeah, Revivify is on the
Yeah.
list. At 9th level.
Right.
Tongues, teleportation circle.
There's lots of fun stuff.
Sleet storm, magical. So there's definitely some things on here that
It's really a
make
shame.
it
It's a shame you have to use the spell components.
wise.
Teleportation circle is so expensive, but if you cast it every day for a year, it makes a permanent teleportation ring.
Which actually goes right along with that house's fluff because they have those set up.
It costs so much money to actually do that when you calculate it
250
out.
gold.
It's
Venture
250
capital.
gold
Then you
every
start
day
charging people to
for
use
a-
them.
for a
Well,
year.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
it's venture
It
capital.
pays
It's
for
like
itself.
It's
The
like
dragon-
a $500,000
the
gold
dragon
venture
mark
capital.
houses are like nations
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
when
well,
it comes to wealth.
then they would have paid over time.
and
to do
they
that.
sell their services to basically these five different nations that are warring with each other for the past 100 years. So I'm sure they've made their money back.
They've got that vested.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us what you think about the Eberron rules? Put them in the comments below. While you're doing that, go ahead and click like, share, even subscribe.
Check us out on Nerdarchy.com.
Or hang out with us over on Facebook.
Or you can join the conversation on Reddit.
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.